They expected a scream. Instead, the human sat on the scorched training stone, opened a plain metal lunchbox, and started eating like this was a picnic, while the air alarms wailed and 3 alien species collapsed to their knees. Above the arena, the Academy's top instructor froze mid-sentence, staring through the glass as if her entire career had just cracked in half. The Galactic Survival Academy was famous for one thing: breaking people without spilling political blood. It took proud recruits from 100 worlds and stripped them down to truth, fear, hunger, weakness. Graduates became shock troops, explorers, and corporate security legends. Failures became cautionary tales. Instructor Dralketh Vaughn loved that reputation. Dralketh was tall, scaled, and sharp in every way: voice, posture, eyes. Her species, the Vaughnery, evolved in tight canyons with razor winds. They believed discipline was mercy. She'd ended the dreams of champions and had the numbers to prove it. So when the administrator, a soft-voiced being named Orith Selm, informed her that a human had requested her Deathworld Advanced course, she almost laughed. Humans are mid-tier, Dralketh said, reviewing the old files. Average endurance. Soft tissue. Fragile heat tolerance. Why would one ask for this? Oritha's faceplates shifted uneasily. The request came with a waiver. Signed. No political protections. Dralketha's eyes narrowed. Name: Ronan Hale. The file showed a human male, medium height, lean build, calm stare. Background: frontier rescue crews on a storm planet. A mechanic. Not a soldier. Not a champion. Perfect. Dralketh assembled the class with care. A Jexery climber with 4 gripping arms. A stone-shelled Thornkin endurance brute. A Kelmuth who boasted a toxin filter organ. And Ronan Hale, the human, who arrived with a small duffel and a quiet expression that made people underestimate him without realizing they were doing it. Dralketh stepped forward on the metal platform. Welcome to Deathworld Advanced. This is not sport. This is not pride. This is survival. She gestured toward the arena doors. Inside are conditions borrowed from worlds that killed their first settlers. Cold that cracks bone. Heat that melts breath. Air that punishes lungs. Gravity that folds joints. You will fail one by one. That is expected. Your choice is simple: endure, adapt, or quit. The Jexery clicked its mandibles. I will not quit. The Thornkin pounded its chest shell. The Kelmuth hissed, eager. Ronan didn't speak. He just looked at the arena doors, like a person watching rain clouds and deciding whether to grab a coat. Dralketh didn't like that calm. She activated the first test, the thermal split. Half the arena became a freezing plate, the other half a humid furnace. The trainees were ordered to cross back and forth, carrying weighted packs. The Jexery lasted a little while, shivering as its arms locked in cold. The Thornikin's shell held, but its inner joints stiffened. The Kelmuth began to pant, toxin organs useless against heat. Ronan crossed steadily. He didn't run. He didn't show off. He moved like someone doing a boring task properly. Dralketh increased difficulty. Colder. Hotter. Humidity like soup. Frost like glass. The Jexery slipped, arms losing coordination. The Thornkin started to crack along the edges of its shell. The Kelmuther's eyes watered. Ronan reached the center line, adjusted his pack straps, and kept going. Dralketh leaned toward the Emisi human. State your condition. Ronan looked up at the observation glass. Uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is the first step toward failure. Maybe, he said, and kept walking. A small twitch ran through Dralketha's jaw. She'd heard fear. She'd heard begging. She'd heard angry denial. But maybe sounded like a person talking to weather. When the thermal split ended, the aliens stumbled out, shaking. Ronan walked out sweating, breathing heavier, but still standing. Still quiet. The second test was supposed to fix that. The Academy's toxic breath chamber was legendary. Dralketh loved it because pride always died there first. The air wasn't instantly lethal, it was worse. It was designed to make the body panic. It clawed at lungs, blurred vision, and turned tough recruits into desperate children. They wore masks with controlled filtration. Enough to keep them alive. Not enough to keep them comfortable. Dralketh sealed the group inside and began the flow. The Kelmuth, with its toxin organ, smiled at first. Then it coughed. Then it coughed harder. The Jexery's mandibles trembled. The Thornikin's heavy breaths became a grinding wheeze. Ronan stood in the center, eyes half closed, like he was listening to something. Dralketh watched his vitals. Elevated heart rate, yes. But controlled. No panic spike. No wild flailing. She increased concentration. The Kelmuth collapsed first. Not dead, just overwhelmed. The Jexery tapped out, hands shaking as it crawled toward the emergency door. The Thornkin lasted longer, stubborn and cracking, then slammed its fist against the wall in surrender. Ronan remained. Dralketh spoke calmly through the intercom, forcing her voice into the tone that always worked. Your lungs are not built for this. Your body will betray you. Quit now, and you will live. Ronan exhaled. I'm trying to see if the mask is leaking. Dralketh's eyes flashed. It is not leaking. He turned his head slowly, like he was following a scent. Then why does it smell like burned plastic? That is the chamber. That is the point. Ronan lifted the mask slightly, took a careful breath of raw chamber air, then lowered it again. Smells like a pool and old eggs. Dralketh's claws tightened on the railing. He had just inhaled what made hardened recruits cry. And he described it like a memory from childhood. Before she could respond, an alarm screamed, different from the trainees' panic alarms. A red hazard warning across the entire observation corridor. A seal rupture. The toxic mix was leaking into the staff area. Dralketh's throat burned instantly, even through her own emergency filter. She staggered, angry at the facility's weakness, but more angry at the fact that the human's vitals remained steadier than hers. Purge the chamber. Orith shouted from behind her, voice shaking. Dralketh slammed the purge. Clean air flooded in. Doors unsealed. Medics rushed toward the trainees. Ronan walked out, removed his mask, and frowned. So, are we going again? Or is that it? A medic scanned him, then scanned again, confused. No inflammation. No toxin readings. No lung scarring. Dralketh stared. The human wasn't superhuman. He was just adapted. Built by a world that didn't care if you were proud. That night, Dralketh finally opened the updated human file that Orith had begged her to read. It was long. The first section had one title that made her scales feel cold. Deathworld species. Terran humans. Do not assume limits. She read about their gravity. Their temperature swings. Their immune systems that treated poison like a negotiable problem. Their stubborn social bonding. Their talent for turning desperation into tools. And then she saw a note at the end of the file that didn't come from biology. It came from intelligence. Warning: multiple factions attempt to recruit, exploit, or eliminate humans due to unpredictable adaptation. Academy personnel should assume humans will be targeted. Dralketh sat back. So this wasn't only training. This was bait. In the early hours, a facility-wide siren shattered the quiet. Not a drill. Not a minor warning. A full evacuation alarm. Dralketh sprinted to the security wall, breath tight. The biodome cameras showed chaos, staff running, doors sealing, drones hovering. The hazard label flashed. Class 7 Spore Bloom, Section D. Dralketh's stomach dropped. Because in the center of Section D, inside the restricted hazard garden, sat Ronan Hale. Cross-legged. Calm. A plain lunchbox open on his lap. Eating. He glanced up at the camera as if he'd noticed a mild inconvenience, not a death zone. Dralketh whispered, horrified and furious at the same time. What did you do, human? Dralketh reached the biodome barrier and found a wall of armed responders already there, sealed behind thick glass. Their suits were heavy, their voices sharp, and their fear was real. Do not open the seal, a safety officer barked. Those spores shut down breathing in under a minute. Orith Seln stood near the front, trembling. He wandered in when the sensors glitched. We tried to lock the doors. You tried, Dralketh snapped. Her eyes stayed fixed on the human inside. Ronan was still sitting in the hazard garden, chewing slowly. Around him, tall dark plants pulsed faintly, releasing pale dust that drifted like smoke. A spore cloud. And yet Ronan didn't cough. He didn't panic. He took another bite. Dralketh grabbed an intercom handset, forced the channel open, and spoke into the hazard zone. Ronan Hale. Stand up. Walk toward the blue lights. Now. Ronan looked around at the glowing markers, then back toward the glass where a dozen terrified faces stared at him. Oh, he said, voice calm through the speaker. That's why everyone's running. Yes, Dralketh said. That is why. Move. Ronan held up his lunchbox. I'm almost done. A responder choked on a laugh panic sound. Another cursed. Dralketh's voice sharpened. Human. You are in a lethal zone. Ronan nodded like he understood. The sign said, do not enter. I didn't see it from the other side. Move. Ronan sighed, closed the lunchbox, and stood. The spore cloud swirled around his chest. He blinked once, rubbed his nose, and walked toward the lights at an ordinary pace. Faster, someone yelled. Ronan didn't speed up. He didn't run like prey. He walked like a person refusing to be bullied by air. When he crossed the invisible threshold, responder drones sprayed neutralizing mist around him. A decontamination shower slammed down. Medical scanners flared. Dralketh pushed forward. Are you injured? Ronan wiped water from his face. No. A medic checked the scan and frowned. There is spore contact. But, no receptor response. No lung shutdown. Oritha's voice cracked. That's not possible. Ronan shrugged. I used to do rescue work in mold storms. You learn what masks work. You learn what doesn't. You also learn that panic kills faster than the air sometimes. Dralketh stared at him. Not boasting. Not mocking. Just stating a fact like it was common sense. And that was when the biodome door behind them exploded. Not a full blast. Controlled. Precise. A breach cut like a knife through metal. 3 figures slipped through the smoke. Sleek armor. No academy markings. Professional movement. Dralketh's instincts screamed. This wasn't an accident. This was exactly what the intelligence note warned. The lead intruder raised a weapon, aimed past Dralketh, and locked onto Ronan. Asset acquired, the intruder's translator said, cold and confident. Human, you are coming with us. Responders shouted. Drones swarmed. But the intruders moved with shocking speed, tossing a small device that burst into a curtain of dark fog. Sensors went blind. Radio channels filled with static. Dralketh coughed, eyes burning, and in that instant she realized something that made her chest tighten. The Academy's legendary dangers were one thing. But this was a hunt. Ronan's gaze tracked the intruders without fear. He lowered his lunchbox to the floor slowly, like he was placing something fragile. Who are you? He asked. We are the people who understand your value, the intruder replied. You will be studied. Improved. Sold. Ronan's jaw tightened for the first time. Dralketh stepped between him and the weapon without thinking. He is under Academy protection. The intruder laughed. Protection? You used death zones as entertainment. Dralketh hated that the words landed. She raised her own sidearm. Leave. The intruder lifted a hand. 2 more weapons aimed at Dralketh. The fog thickened. Drones clattered to the floor as their systems died. Ronan leaned slightly toward Dralketh, voice low. That fog. It's not just smoke. Dralketh kept her eyes forward. You can tell. Ronan's gaze flicked to the floor. It's like station fire suppressant. But, wrong. It's eating the signal. He took a slow breath, then spoke loud enough for the intruders to hear. "Hey! Quick question. If you want me alive, why are you pointing that at my chest?" The leader's weapon didn't move. "Compliance keeps you alive." Ronan nodded once. "Okay." Then he did something no one expected. He kicked his lunchbox. It slid across the wet floor like a puck and struck the nearest intruder's boot. The intruder flinched, just a small reflex. But that reflex was enough. Ronan moved like a snapped cable, fast and clean. He grabbed the intruder's weapon barrel, twisted, and drove his shoulder into the attacker's chest. The armored figure slammed back into a wall. Dralketh fired a stun bolt at the second intruder. It hit, but the armor absorbed more than it should have. The intruder stayed upright. Ronan didn't waste time. He ripped a decontamination hose from the wall, swung it, and smashed the third intruder's helmet visor. The visor cracked. Fog leaked inside. The intruder choked, suddenly disoriented. Dralketh realized the truth at the same time Ronan did. The fog wasn't harmless. It was tuned to blind tech, yes, but also to interfere with breathing filters and suit seals. It was meant to make defenders stumble, not attackers who wore the right gear. "So they planned this," Dralketh growled. Ronan slammed the first intruder's head into the wall and snatched the attacker's wrist device. "Then we changed the plan." He pressed a button without even reading it. A bright tone beeped. The fog thinned. The intruders' helmets flickered with warning lights. Their own fog device was now purging backward. "Impossible," the leader hissed, backing up. Ronan's eyes were hard now. "I fix machines for a living. Your gadget had a maintenance port. You left it exposed." Dralketha's heart hammered. Human ingenuity. Not strength. Not armor. Not claws. A mind that treated alien tech like a puzzle. Security teams finally broke through the jam and stormed the corridor. The intruders, suddenly desperate, threw another device, this one a gravity spike. The floor lurched. Everyone dropped as gravity doubled, then tripled. Dralketh felt her limbs strain. Ronan grunted, but stayed half upright. He grabbed the lunchbox again, because somehow he had picked it back up, and used it like a brace, jamming it under a wall panel. "What are you doing?" Dralketh gasped. "Anchoring," Ronan said through clenched teeth. "If it's a field generator, it needs stability. You hit the housing, it destabilizes." He slammed his boot into the panel. Sparks burst. The gravity spike coughed, flickered, and died. The intruders fled. 2 were captured. 1 escaped through the breached door, vanishing into the Academy's service tunnels. The corridor went quiet except for alarms and heavy breathing. Orith stared at Ronan like he'd seen a myth. You fought them with a lunchbox." Ronan looked down at it, water dripping from his sleeves. "It's a good lunchbox." Dralketh stepped closer, voice low. "They came for you." Ronan met her gaze. "Then they'll come again." Dralketh hated how certain he sounded. Not because he was arrogant, but because he had accepted reality and was already building a plan inside his head. She looked at the shattered biodome door, the stunned responders, and the captured intruders being dragged away. The Academy had tried to break a human. Instead, a human had exposed a rot inside the Academy. And now Dralketh had a choice. Keep treating Ronan like a trainee, or treat him like what he really was. A storm in human form. By dawn, the Academy's leadership tried to bury the incident under procedure. Reports. Closed meetings. Security upgrades. Quiet threats about interstellar embarrassment. Dralketh didn't buy it. She stood in the interrogation room as the captured intruders sat chained behind a light barrier. Their armor was stripped. Their faces were hidden by smooth masks with no markings. No nation. No flag. No shame. Orith spoke softly from the corner. "They won't identify themselves." "They don't need to," Dralketh replied. "Their gear speaks." Ronan sat beside Dralketh, hands folded, posture calm again. Not relaxed, ready. The interrogator asked the first intruder, "Who hired you?" Silence. Dralketh leaned forward. You used a gravity spike rated above civilian limits. That means military supply or corporate black market. Your fog device was designed to disable Academy drones. That means you studied our systems. The intruder's head turned slightly. Dralketh's scales prickled. And you chose a biodome breach during sleep hours. That means you had an internal schedule. Orith swallowed. A traitor. Ronan's eyes narrowed. Or someone with admin access. The interrogator slammed the table. Answer. The intruder finally spoke, voice flat. The human doesn't belong to you. It belongs to whoever can afford it. Ronan exhaled slowly. I'm not a tool. The intruder tilted its head. Everything becomes a tool. Even pride. Dralketh's claws tightened. You think humans are weapons. They are worse, the intruder said. They adapt without permission. They resist control. If you leave them free, they change your world. Ronan's voice stayed quiet. So you'd rather put a collar on it? The intruder didn't deny it. Dralketh felt something shift inside her, an emotion she didn't like. Respect. Not for the intruder. For the human. Because Ronan wasn't offended like a pampered creature. He was focused. Like a person hearing the storm report and deciding where to place the sandbags. After the interrogation, Dralketh took Ronan to the training arena again, but not for endurance. Not for pain. She cleared the room and activated the wall screens. Tell me what you noticed, she said. Ronan pointed at the recorded breach. They hit the biodome because it's full of life support lines. Easy cover. And because you expect trainees to fear danger zones. They assumed I'd panic, run, and get separated. Dralketh nodded once. And the fog. It was tuned, Ronan said. It didn't just block vision. It jammed your drones. It also messed with filters. That means they knew what suits you'd use. Oritha's voice came from the doorway. Only 3 people have access to responder suit specs. Dralketh didn't look away from Ronan. And if those 3 include you, administrator. Orith stiffened. I would never. Ronan raised a hand. Not accusing. But we should assume the intruder has a friend here. Dralketh tasted bitterness. The Academy's pride was a mask. A human had walked in and already started seeing what they refused to see. She tapped the arena controls. Then we prepare. Ronan blinked. Prepare for what? Dralketh's eyes hardened. The next attempt. Ronan watched her for a moment. You want to use training as defense. Exactly, she said. My course teaches survival under unfair conditions. If someone wants you, we make them bleed for it. Ronan's lips twitched, almost a smile. Okay. But I'm not just surviving. Dralketh tilted her head. Explain. Ronan stepped to the arena floor and looked up at the observation glass. They think Deathworld Training proves humans are tough. That's not the real advantage. Dralketh waited. Ronan spoke simply. The real advantage is that humans get creative when they're trapped. He walked to a maintenance hatch, knelt, and opened it with fast hands. Wires, ports, connectors. To Dralketh, it was a sealed system. To Ronan, it was a toolbox. You shouldn't have access, Orith began. Ronan didn't stop. I'm not breaking it. I'm learning it. Dralketh watched the human connect a small cable to a diagnostic port. What is that? She asked. A simple loop, Ronan said. If a jammer hits your drones again, I can reroute basic control to hardline in this wing. Your drones will work like old machines, dumb, but alive. Orith stared. You can do that. Ronan shrugged. If your system wasn't designed by someone trying to hide it, sure. Dralketh felt a strange heat in her chest. Not anger. Not fear. A spark. Because this was what she had never taught. Not endurance. Not suffering. Solutions. They spent the day turning the arena into a trap. Dralketh used her knowledge of Academy security patterns. Ronan used his ability to imagine how an enemy would move. They set decoy routes. They placed signal repeaters inside thick walls. They mapped the service tunnels the intruder escaped through. That night, Dralketh stood alone in her office, watching the empty biodome feed. The plants swayed calmly, unaware of how close they'd come to becoming a mass grave. Orith entered quietly. "Instructor, the board is unhappy. They say you're overreacting. They want the human removed from your course and transferred to a diplomatic dorm." Dralketh's jaw tightened. "Why?" Orith lowered his voice. "Because if the Academy admits it can't protect a trainee, sponsors will withdraw." Dralketh looked at him sharply. "So they want to protect their reputation, not the human." Orith didn't deny it. Dralketh stood, scales shifting along her arms. "If they move him, he becomes easier to steal. A quiet dorm, softer guards." Orith swallowed. "Yes." Dralketh turned back to the screens and made a decision that surprised even her. "Then we don't let them move him." Orith's eyes widened. "You can't defy the board." Dralketh's voice was cold. "I can if the board is compromised." Orith hesitated. "That is a dangerous claim." Dralketh leaned in, eyes bright. "So is leaving a human unprotected while predators circle." Orith looked away, then whispered, "What are you planning?" Dralketh's answer was simple. "We keep training." Orith frowned. "Training will not stop a professional extraction team." Dralketh said, "It will if the human turns the training into a weapon." As if summoned by his name, Ronan stepped into the doorway, carrying the same lunchbox as always. He paused, reading their expressions. "What did I miss?" he asked. Dralketh studied him. The calm. The patience. The quiet confidence that wasn't arrogance. "You missed politics," she said. Ronan nodded like that explained everything. He walked in, set the lunchbox on her desk, and opened it. Inside were simple food blocks and something wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it. A small, crude tool made from Academy scrap, shaped like a wedge with a grip. Dralketh's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" Ronan's voice stayed even. "A door problem solver." Orith stared. "You made that, today?" Ronan nodded. "In between drills." Dralketh felt that spark brighten. Humans didn't just survive Deathworlds. They turned them into workshops. And somewhere deep in the Academy, the traitor watching security feeds would soon realize something too late. The human wasn't trapped in Dralketh's course. The traitor was. The next attempt came sooner than anyone expected. It started with a message on Dralketh's private channel, an automated alert that should have been impossible to fake. "Facility power test. All security systems temporarily offline." Orith paled when he saw it. "That's a board-level command." Dralketh's claws hovered over the console. "Or a stolen signature." Ronan stood beside her, calm as ever, lunchbox in hand like it was part of his uniform. Dralketh made her choice fast. "Lock down the training wing manually. Hard doors. No wireless." Orith rushed to comply. The lights flickered. Then the hallway cameras went black. For a heartbeat, the Academy felt blind. Dralketh's old instincts rose, predator instincts. But now she wasn't hunting a trainee. She was hunting an enemy. They moved to the arena, because the arena was the only place they controlled. Dralketh activated the hazard systems, but not to punish Ronan. To shape the battlefield. Cold mist crawled along the floor. Heat panels warmed the upper air, creating a false layer, fog that hid movement but also created predictable thermal currents. Ronan watched the patterns. "They'll come through the service tunnels again." Dralketh nodded. "We sealed them." Ronan's eyes stayed on the far wall. Sealed doors don't stop people who planned for doors. He walked to a maintenance hatch and placed his door problem solver beside it. Then he placed a small coil of wire and a battery pack. Dralketh frowned. "You built an explosive." Ronan shook his head. "No. I built a surprise. Orith arrived, breath fast. Manual locks engaged. But something is wrong, my admin panel is rejecting me. Dralketha's jaw tightened. The traitor is still inside. A metallic thud echoed behind the arena wall. Then another. The sealed tunnel door was being cut. Dralketh raised her weapon. Ronan didn't. He simply opened his lunchbox, took one bite, and closed it again with a soft click. Dralketh stared at him for half a second. You're eating now. Ronan's answer was quiet. If they want me scared, I won't give them that. The wall panel sparks flared. A slice of metal fell away. The tunnel door opened like a mouth. 3 intruders stepped through, same sleek armor as before. But this time there were more, shadows behind them, moving with practiced confidence. The leader's voice echoed through their external speaker. Human. You are leaving. Dralketh stepped forward. Not today. The leader laughed. Instructor. You already proved you cannot break the human. Now step aside and save your reputation. Dralketha's eyes burned. You mistake my goal. She fired. Stun bolts flashed through the fog. One hit an intruder and dropped them, armor finally overwhelmed. Another intruder returned fire with a hard pulse weapon that slammed into the arena's control pillar. Sparks erupted. Systems flickered. The intruders pushed forward. Ronan moved sideways, not toward the enemy, but toward the wall controls. He yanked open a panel and jammed in his cable loop. The arena lights shifted. Drones that had been dead moments earlier suddenly woke up, dumb, wired, and angry. They surged forward, crashing into intruders like metal animals. The leader cursed. Impossible. Ronan's voice carried across the arena. You assumed this place was modern enough to depend on wireless. That's cute. The intruders deployed their fog again, thick, signal-eating darkness. But the drones didn't care. They were hardwired now. They kept moving. Dralketh watched Ronan in the fog, a human shape barely visible. He wasn't charging like a brute. He was placing things. Guiding movement. Controlling space. An intruder lunged toward him, weapon raised. Ronan stepped back into the cold mist layer, where the floor was slick, and the intruder's boot lost traction for a fraction of a second. That fraction was enough. Ronan's surprise snapped. A thin wire loop tightened around the intruder's ankle and yanked, powered by the battery pack driving a small motor. Not strong enough to break bone. Just strong enough to steal balance. The intruder hit the floor hard. Ronan grabbed the fallen weapon, slid it across the ground to Dralketh like a gift, and moved on. Dralketh caught it without looking. Her heart pounded. Her mind raced. He was turning the arena into a death world. Not for himself. For them. The leader realized it too. Ignore the instructor. Get the human. 2 intruders pushed deeper, heading straight for Ronan. Ronan backed toward the heat panel zone, where hot air rose and fog thinned. He wanted visibility. He lifted his lunchbox and tossed it, light, harmless, toward the intruder's feet. They flinched again. Always the reflex. Always the assumption that humans played dirty. While they flinched, Ronan reached up and slammed a manual lever. A ceiling vent opened. A blast of compressed air roared down, turning fog into a spinning funnel that slammed into the intruders' visors and forced them to cover their faces. Ronan didn't strike them. He stole their time. Then Dralketh struck. She stepped in and used the stolen seconds like a blade. 2 shots. 2 stuns. 2 bodies down. The leader retreated, furious. This isn't extraction. This is war. Ronan's voice was calm and sharp. No. This is training. The leader raised a small device, sleeker than the last. Then let's end the lesson. A flash. Gravity spiked again, harsher and wider. The arena groaned. Dralketha's knees buckled. Orith cried out behind the glass, pinned to the floor. Ronan grunted, muscles shaking, but stayed upright on one knee. His face tightened. Pain real now. The leader advanced, each step heavy but controlled in his armor. Dralketh tried to raise her weapon and couldn't. Ronan looked up at Dralketh through the haze. He was breathing hard. "Dralketh," he said, voice strained. "The generator's external vent. Where is it?" Dralketh forced words out. "Under the tunnel frame." Ronan nodded once. He crawled, not away, but toward the leader, toward the tunnel opening where the generator's field likely anchored. Every movement looked impossible under the crushing force. The leader laughed. "You can't reach it." Ronan's eyes burned with determination. "You don't know humans." He reached the tunnel frame and wedged his door problem solver into a seam. Then he shoved with everything he had. Metal groaned. The wedge bit deeper. Ronan slammed his palm against a hidden port, feeling for vibration, finding the vent by touch. He yanked. A panel tore off. Air screamed out. The gravity device whined, destabilized, and then failed, like a beast losing its throat. Gravity snapped back. Everyone gasped. Dralketh rose like a freed predator. The leader turned to flee. But Dralketh was faster now. She shot, stunning the leader cleanly through the shoulder seam. The leader hit the floor, weapon skittering away. Silence fell, broken only by crackling panels and the distant thrum of emergency systems. Security teams poured in at last, weapons raised, shouting orders. Orith stumbled into the arena, staring at the captured leader. We stopped them." Dralketh looked at Ronan. The human was bent over, hands on knees, breathing hard. Then, like always, he reached for his lunchbox. He opened it. Took a bite. Dralketh let out a sound that was half disbelief, half laughter, and half something she couldn't name. The human had not only survived Deathworld Training. He had used it to protect everyone in the room. And now, with the leader captured alive, there was only one question left. Who inside the academy had helped them? Ronan wiped his mouth, looked at Dralketh, and spoke softly. "Now we find the traitor." The traitor wasn't caught by violence. They were caught by routine. After the failed extraction, the academy sealed itself tight. The board demanded quick answers. Sponsors demanded reassurance. Security demanded control. And traitors, Dralketh realized, demanded silence. Dralketh and Ronan stood in the security hub where the captured leader sat behind a barrier, wrists locked, head tilted in calm hatred. "You failed," Dralketh said. The leader's voice was cold. "We learned." Ronan leaned against a console, lunchbox resting at his side like a quiet insult. "You learned I'm hard to grab. But you still haven't learned the important part." The leader didn't respond. Ronan continued. "Humans don't win by being unbreakable. We win by being annoying." Dralketh glanced at him. "Annoying?" Ronan nodded. "We ask questions. We poke systems. We notice patterns. And we don't stop until the thing that's wrong is fixed." Orith entered with shaking hands. "Instructor, the board ordered me to wipe the biodome logs." Dralketh's eyes narrowed. "Ordered?" Orith nodded. "They say it's to protect confidence." Ronan's jaw tightened. "That's not confidence. That's concealment." Dralketh spoke quietly. "If the board is compromised, they'll erase evidence and move you off station again." Orith whispered, "They also scheduled a diplomatic transfer of the human, today." Dralketh's scales rose. "To where?" Orith swallowed. "A private shuttle. No academy escort. Sponsored by an unnamed corporate partner." Ronan exhaled. "That's the third attempt, but with paperwork." Dralketh turned toward the security screen and made her final decision. "We don't let them take you." Orith panicked. "Instructor, that's rebellion." Dralketh stared at him. "No. It is duty." Ronan stepped closer. "If we openly refuse, they'll force it. If we run, they'll label me a threat and hunt harder." Dralketh nodded slowly. "So we use their own rules." Ronan's eyes sharpened. "We bait the traitor." They built the bait with the simplest thing, a false transfer route. Orith arranged a fake shuttle schedule into the public system. Dralketh leaked a rumor through security channels about a human relocation. Ronan acted bored on camera, carrying his lunchbox, walking the corridors like a man going to a meeting he didn't care about. Meanwhile, Dralketh watched the admin access logs, every hand that touched the schedule. One hand touched it twice. A board liaison named Vel Surok. Vel was polite, charming, and always helpful. He also happened to be one of the few people with clearance to alter responder suits, camera delays, and biodome locks. Dralketh confronted him in the central hall, flanked by security. Vel smiled. "Instructor. I was just ensuring the humans' comfort." Ronan stood beside her, calm. "Comfort's not your job." Vel's smile tightened. "You are a guest in our system, human." Ronan nodded once. "And you're a thief in your own." Vel's eyes flicked toward the ceiling cameras, then toward a side corridor. Dralketh saw the movement. "Stop." Vel didn't. He bolted. Dralketh chased, fast, scaled legs eating distance. Ronan ran too, not as fast in burst speed, but steady, relentless. Vel slammed a door panel, trying to seal them out. Ronan's door problem solver appeared in his hand like a magic trick. He jammed it into the seam and forced the panel open just enough for Dralketh to rip it fully. Vel sprinted into a restricted hangar bay, where the real private shuttle waited. The intruder's remaining team emerged from behind cargo crates, weapons raised. So Vel hadn't been acting alone. Dralketh stepped forward, weapon ready. Ronan didn't flinch. The leader behind them, still captured, had been right. They learned. And now they had come prepared for the Instructor too. Vel shouted, "Take the human now. Kill the Instructor if needed." Dralketh's anger turned cold. "So this is what your academy became." Vel snarled. "This academy survives by selling value. The human is value." Ronan took a slow breath. Then he opened his lunchbox right there in the hangar bay, under gunfire threat, and took a bite. The intruders hesitated again, confused. Dralketh used the confusion like a blade. She fired at the lighting rig. Sparks rained down. Darkness fractured the space. Alarms blared as the hangar's safety system kicked in. Ronan moved to the shuttle's fuel line, hands quick. He wasn't trying to blow it up. He was trying to disable it. "Human!" Vel yelled. "You'll die here." Ronan spoke calmly, still working. "I've died worse ways in my imagination." He ripped open a panel, found the shuttle's pre-flight control, and yanked a key component loose. The shuttle whined, systems failing. Its door locks clicked uselessly. One intruder charged Ronan. Dralketh intercepted, striking with her forearm ridge, knocking the attacker sideways into a crate. Another intruder raised a weapon toward Dralketh's back. Ronan didn't shoot. He threw his lunchbox. It hit the intruder's wrist. The weapon jerked off target. The stun bolt missed. Dralketh turned and fired, dropping the intruder. Ronan grabbed the lunchbox again like it mattered, then shoved Vel against the shuttle hull. Vel struggled. "You don't understand. Humans are unstable. You'll change everything." Ronan's eyes were steady. "Good." Dralketh stepped closer, voice sharp. "This academy was meant to prepare beings for hostile worlds. Instead you invited hostile beings inside." Vel spat. "The board." Orith's voice rang from the hangar entrance. The board just received the full logs. Vel froze. Orith held up a datapad with a live broadcast marker. "I sent it to sponsors. To oversight councils. To every world that funds this place." Vel's mask of control shattered. "You can't." Orith's voice trembled, but it didn't break. "I already did." Security teams flooded the hangar bay. The remaining intruders dropped their weapons, trapped. Vel slumped as cuffs locked around his wrists. Dralketh exhaled slowly, feeling something she'd never expected at the Survival Academy. Relief. In the aftermath, the Academy changed fast. The board members who had hidden behind reputation were removed by external oversight. Security systems were rebuilt openly. Training courses were rewritten, not just to break arrogance, but to teach adaptability honestly. And Ronan Hale? They offered him medals, sponsorships, leadership roles. He refused most of it. He stayed long enough to finish the course, not because he needed the certificate, but because he wanted to prove a point. On the final day, Dralketh stood before the class again. New recruits, old survivors, and staff who watched with different eyes now. She looked at Ronan. "You came here to train." Ronan nodded. "Yeah." "You survived what breaks champions." He shrugged. "I had help." Dralketha's jaw twitched, almost a smile. "And you exposed a threat that could have consumed this place." Ronan looked around the academy, quieter than before. "I don't like bullies." Dralketh held out a small academy insignia, one reserved for instructors, not trainees. "Then teach," she said. Ronan stared at it. "Me?" "You see systems," Dralketh replied. "You see weakness and turn it into strength. That is what this academy pretended to be." Ronan didn't take the badge right away. He opened his lunchbox, took one final bite, and then closed it with that same soft click. Then he took the insignia. And for the first time, the Galactic Survival Academy understood what Deathworld truly meant. Not a planet that kills you. A world that forges you. And humans were forged in the harshest workshop in the galaxy.